Hi guys, it's Webby and welcome back to another video. Back here again at Peninsula Skoda today. This time having a look at the brand new Scala hatchback. 2020 seems to be a pretty busy year for Skoda. Plenty of new cars coming out and updated models, so hence all the Skoda videos recently. So we're going to have a look around this car, take it for a bit of a drive, tell you some features about the car and what it drives like, yeah, at the end of the day, give my thoughts on what I think it's like. So we've had a bit of a drive, just come to a nice location to have a stop and a bit of a look around the car. So the Scala itself comes in three different models. You've got the base model, the Monte Carlo, and then you've got this launch edition that I'm driving today. And obviously as you go through the range, you've got more equipment, obviously more expensive. They all share the same engine. They've got the 1.5 litre 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, mated to a 7-speed dual clutch transmission. So that's all the same throughout the range. It's just the equipment level that changes between the different models, as you'd expect. I'm going to say the one I've got today is the launch edition. So that is obviously the most highly specified car. They've basically thrown everything apart from the kitchen sink at it. The only option on this car is actually the panoramic sunroof, and everything else is standard. But I'll show you that as we go around the car in a moment, and point out some of the standard features which are, you know, for a car of this size and this sort of for this price point, it comes with so much stuff. It's a pretty compelling package. Something that Skoda have also started doing recently is service packages for the car as well. So you can basically pre-pay for your servicing up front. They do a 3 or 5 year plan, depending on how long you think you might keep the car for. So that's really nice. You can sort of, you know, pay it, don't have to worry about it every time you come in for a service. It's all paid for, because yeah, servicing is one of those things that nobody likes having to do. You know, it's one of those unnecessary evils, unfortunately. So Skoda have taken care of that for you, and yeah, basically offered some really good prepaid packages. So we'll have a look around the car next. I'll give you a bit of a tour of the outside of the car, point out some of the cool features. Then we'll jump inside. Then I'll be able to show you some of the tech and all the sort of gadgets that are on this new car. So here we are then. This is the Scala Launch Edition. And as I said a moment ago, the only factory fitted option on this car is actually the panoramic sunroof. So everything else I'll talk about, that is standard. So as we start the front of the car then, it's got full LED headlights for low and high beam. They're becoming sort of fairly standard on cars nowadays. That used to be something that was only on sort of the higher end of, you know, sort of your German manufacturers and bits and pieces like that. But like anything, as technology gets newer, it gets cheaper to produce, it filters down to, so, you know, smaller cars rather than just your high-end expensive stuff. So yeah, so we start off with the LED headlights. We've then got things like front parking sensors. We've got the side sensors for the active park assist. That's standard as well. It's got radar cruise control. It's got the safety stuff you'd expect on the car. You know, autonomous braking, lane keeping aid, blind spot monitor. You've got these really nice 18-inch alloy wheels as well, which against this white paintwork actually look really cool. I actually think this car would look good in black as well. I like the sort of styling and the shape of the car. So other bits and pieces we've got, you've got obviously keyless entry. The door mirrors fold in when you lock the car, so that's also nice. It's a nice handy feature actually, because sometimes you walk away and you think, oh, did I lock my car, didn't I lock it? At least when the mirrors fold in you can actually tell. You've got this nice sort of chrome line around the windows as well. That's a nice little feature. Again, darker colour cars, that would sort of stand out a little bit more. Coming around to the back of the car, so as well as having LED headlights, you've got LED tail lights as well. Again, they're as much a safety feature as anything, because obviously at night they're a bit brighter. So yeah, it stands out a little bit more. Obviously rear parking sensors, reverse camera. This sort of situation with a rear window, so it's always black, so whatever colour car you get, it's always black. And then like they've done on some of the other new models, the Skoda badge is now this new sort of modern design where all the letters are spread out rather than just the smaller sort of badge that they used to have on the tailgate. Styling wise, It reminds me a little bit of the Audi A3 Sportback in the fact that it looks like a hatchback but a little bit bigger and longer. Yeah, and so you can tell it's a hatchback. Obviously it's just that sort of back bit which looks like it's longer than a hatchback, if that makes sense. I don't think it's necessarily a bad looking sort of design, but yeah, it just reminds me of the Audi A3 Sportback a little bit, which, you know, that's not a bad looking car, so that's not a sort of that's not taking anything away from the looks of the car. So another nice feature on the Scala is that the tailgate on this car is actually electric, which is quite unusual for a car of this size and certainly in this class. So there's just a touch sensor just under there. So then, yeah, and it opens up to actually a really decent sized boot. There's certainly plenty of space in there for your holiday luggage, your shopping. Yeah, there's not too much that you wouldn't be able to get in there. There is a little bit of a sort of drop there, so you've got a bit of a lip here to get stuff in and out of the boot, but that's sort of fairly standard for the class. You've got your normal tether points there, if you want to put obviously your child seats in the back, which is again pretty standard these days. So yeah, decent amount of space, and then you just push the button and it closes again. So that's quite a nice and neat feature actually. I do like that. So I mentioned earlier that this has got the 1.5 litre 4-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine from the Volkswagen Group in it. Here in Australia we do have to use a minimum 95 petrol, purely because obviously fuel in Australia isn't quite as good quality as other countries, so they do recommend a minimum of 95. So now we've had a bit of a look at the outside of the car, let's jump inside and I'll show you what's inside, all the tech and all the standard features. Alright, so let's have a look inside. Hand on the door handle, automatically opens with the keyless entry, door mirrors unfold. So yeah, immediately you look inside and yeah, it looks really, really nice, doesn't it? Just before we get to the interior, coming over to the door, all your sort of standard controls there, nothing too fancy. You do get a little button down there, so that's an internal button to open the boot, internal boot release, so that's quite cool. As you can see on this model, we've got leather and suede on the seats, so that's a really sort of upmarket feel. Doesn't feel like a basic cheap car, it's really sort of premium. Leather and suede's a lovely combination. Electric operation for the seat here as well, including electric lumbar support, which for people who've got bad backs, that's really important. Keyless push button start as well, so the push button just there on the side of the steering column. Very sort of typical Skoda interior, if you like. Obviously a lot of manufacturers' cars always seem to sort of look very much the same. There's the huge panoramic sunroof I was talking about earlier, but strangely it doesn't actually open. It's just a large piece of glass effectively, but it does have an internal blind that you can close obviously in the summer to stop the heat making the car too hot. So let's jump in and have a look at some of the features inside. Right, so inside, let's have a look around and see what we've got here, shall we? So straight ahead of us, we've got the lovely digital dashboard, which Skoda seem to be putting on as standard equipment on all their cars now, which is really cool, I think, because it's really easy to read. There's lots of functionality on there. It just feels nicer than the sort of the old style, you know, sort of analog controls. Again, buttons on the steering wheel allow you to control what's in front of you. This side just does like your volume. Cruise control again underneath, like we saw in the Superb in my recent video. But yeah, it's all there. It's nice and easy laid out. It's not too difficult to use. You can actually change what you see in front of you. So you can see at the moment, obviously I've got the satellite navigation displayed up there. But using the buttons on the steering wheel, you can just go through, you can have a full screen map, which is quite cool. That's really handy if you want to see all the roads around where you're driving, to sort of make, you know, travelling easier. Then you can just go through all the different options of what you want to look at. Apple CarPlay is an interesting point I'll come to in a second. But yeah, as you can see, it's nice and easy to read. It doesn't require you sort of taking your eyes off the road, which is as much a safety feature as anything else. So there you go, you can see I've configured it slightly differently, so we now have got a bit of driving data, average fuel consumption, instant fuel consumption, range in the tank, what you listen to in the radio, digital speedo. There's loads of information there, but it's not too cluttered. You can actually read it fairly easily. You just need to obviously know where you're looking. The other nice thing you've got on this one as well, don't know if you can just make it out, we've got the paddles here on the steering wheel. So obviously down changes this side, up changes this side with a little plus on the gear pedal there. So that's quite a cool little touch. I'll come to these buttons down here first, because the entertainment system, there's a little bit more to talk about there obviously. So we've got the standard buttons to turn off the parking sensors. That one there will do the active parking system. You've got different driving modes there as well, which is again something that's becoming fairly common these days. And then the button to disengage the stop-start system, which is, yeah, if you don't like it, a bit like me, you can turn it off, which is good. Now a couple of other things we've got. A lot of manufacturers are still putting the old style USB points, but in the new Scala we've got two USB-C. The difference being USB-C is basically gives you faster charging, so you can actually plug two devices in there. But also what we've got in here, you can pop your phone in and you've got wireless charging as well, which is quite cool. And actually what is nice, you've got these little I don't know what you call them, feet or whatever. It just stops the phone moving around too much, which I think is a really good idea. So yeah, so you can basically charge your phone whilst you're driving. You can plug a couple more phones in there. So yeah, you'll never really sort of have the situation where your battery's going to go flat. You've just got to remember to get the different type of cable, whatever phone you've got, for the USB-C, USB-A design. So then just in front we've got the controls for the climate control. Fairly basic as to what you see straight in front of you. You've got your temperatures both sides because it's dual zone. You've got your automatic, you've got your recirculation, heated seats, which is really nice. Then just your sort of your heated rear window, your front demister. But then if we press this menu button, what that does is up on the bigger screen, it shows you all the functions of how you can actually control your climate control. It does look a little bit, I wouldn't say complicated, but you just got to sort of take a couple of seconds and sort of look at the screen and see where things are, because it's all digital. So if you look sort of over this side here, this is how you manually control the fan speed. But yeah, you just sort of tap on the screen. It's not difficult, it's just something different from what other cars are basically. But you've got your two temperatures there, you've got your sync button, so you can synchronise both sides to be the same temperature. You can change the airflow, you can turn your aircon on and off, and obviously turn the automatic on and off. But it looks quite nice. It makes it feel like it is a premium car. Just the fact that I've taken, there's a bit of attention to detail with what's going on there basically. So we'll come to the sat nav screen whilst we're here. So as you can see over this side, it's all touch screen by the way. So we've got some buttons over this side, and then also over this side as well. And it's all fairly self-explanatory. There's nothing difficult about this system. Whatever it says on the display, you push the button and that's what you're going to get basically. So if we start off with the home screen, so like most sat nav systems, it's divided up into your sat nav, your phone, your radio. One thing this car does have, and which is quite a new technology coming into cars nowadays, is wireless Apple CarPlay. So where we've got our phone charging down in the wireless charging pad down the bottom in front of the gear stick, it's using wireless Apple CarPlay, so there's no cables floating around the dashboard, which is really cool, and looks much neater as well. So yeah, wireless Apple CarPlay there. Just underneath it's actually, be that your radio or whatever, I've just been listening to a podcast while I've been driving around. Then we've got the built-in sat nav, so that's the car sat nav system there. Obviously if you're going to use Apple CarPlay for your sat nav, you would just go into there, hit your Google Maps or whatever you want to use. So I'll say that's the built-in sat nav. If you want to use Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever you want to use on your iPhone, you just hit the Apple CarPlay button, hit your Google Maps, and there you are, Google Maps. And it's nice because you've got the big widescreen as well. So again, this is the same system we had in the Superb, in the Kodiaq I did a review of recently as well, plus also the Golf R and Golf GTI. So it's a very familiar system if you've been in Volkswagen Group cars recently. So that's a nice big display. I really like that, and it's very clear as well. It's quite a high quality screen. If you come through, if we go to the menu, so this is where you can actually go in, and like any car, you can adjust various different preferences of what you want the car to do or how you want things set up. And again, as you can see from the buttons, it's all very self-explanatory about what each button does. So for example, you can go in and set up your preferences for your driver assistance, safety systems, what you want the navigation to do, whether you want it to do the fastest route or avoid toll roads or whatever, stuff like that. Things like heading into the vehicle, this is where it will tell you things like, have you got any warnings, are you, is a light globe gone out, have you got a puncture and stuff like that. Obviously your tyre pressure monitor, that's where you'd reset it, but then you can choose what you want to adjust as well. You can adjust what settings you've got in the virtual cockpit, which is a bit in front of the driver. So there's literally everything in here that you'd possibly want to be able to adjust on your car. If you come into the vehicle settings, this is where you get much more choice, and you can basically tailor everything to how you want things to work. Something that I quite like, so when you look at the parking side of things, you can actually adjust the volume of the front parking sensors versus the rear, and also the tone of both as well. This is something that that Audi had when I was working for Audi back in the UK, and although this might sound quite a simple thing, it's actually quite important, because when you hear the beeps for your parking sensors, because they're different tones, you can actually determine whether that's the front or the back. And I said that might seem like trivial and not all that important, but when you actually come to use it, it's actually quite a handy feature. But then you can also do things like with the entertainment volume reduction. So when you are using the parking sensors, you can choose what volume you want the radio to still be playing at. So if you want to completely mute the radio, then you can do that. And again, I think that's actually a really good idea. When we're looking at radio, you've only got options of FM or AM. There's no digital radio, which for some people would be a bit of a disappointment. Personally, I don't listen to the radio, I just use my phone and listen to Spotify. But yeah, some people will be a bit disappointed that you can't get DAB radio. But yeah, I guess that's one of those things that they don't offer. If we then flick down, media is where you do things like, obviously if your phone's plugged in for music or Bluetooth. So mine's obviously a wireless Apple CarPlay at the moment. So sitting in the back of the Scala here, there's actually a really decent amount of legroom. Got plenty of headroom as well, even with this panoramic roof fitted. The nice thing you can also do is actually get your feet under the front seats, so you can actually stretch your legs out a little bit more, rather than sort of having, being in an uncomfortable seating position, which is quite nice. In the centre just down here, we've got some air vents. We've also got buttons for the heated rear seats, which is quite an unusual feature. And there's a further 2 USB charging points, so similar to the 2 that we've got in the front of the car. So the seat trim is really nice. We've got the leather and the suede that carries through from the front of the car. I think the only disappointing thing for me is the fact that there's actually no armrest. So there's no armrest to come down, and therefore you don't get any cup holders in the back either, which I think is a bit of a miss, because obviously this is where normally kids would sit. They would generally want an armrest or a cup holder or something to put drinks in. So yeah, I think that's probably the only sort of disappointment really, in the sort of the back of the car. So I had a bit of a technical problem earlier. The battery went flat on my GoPro, which was a bit annoying, just as I was about to do like a drive-in sort of review, I suppose, of the car. The plus side to that is luckily I had a cable with me, so I just used the USB charging point in the car to actually charge my GoPro up again. So yeah, there's a positive to these sort of negative things, I suppose. But yeah, in terms of the way the car drives, yeah, it drives very nicely. The gearbox can be a little bit, it changes up too quickly for my personal liking. Some people obviously prefer it because they want to get, you know, maximum economy out of the car. And sometimes just pulling away from a junction or traffic lights, it can be a little bit kind of, you know, you put your foot down, nothing happens, and all of a sudden it takes off, and yeah, it's a little bit sort of hesitant when you're taking off. I found it was a bit better when you had the gearbox in sport mode rather than just drive, because it was less hesitant, and it, you know, hung on to the gears a little bit longer, so it didn't change up too early. But as I said, that's just my personal preference. Doesn't necessarily make it bad, it's just that's the way I found it to be. But to drive, yeah, the engine's perfectly fine. The gearbox works well with the engine as a general rule. It's actually got cylinder deactivation as well. So if you're just going downhill or just sort of coasting along, it will actually deactivate 2 of the cylinders, so it just runs on the other 2. Obviously in the thoughts of getting maximum economy out of the engine. So yeah, again, it's all sort of very high tech, and sort of, yeah, keeping up with the sort of modern emissions and fuel economy standards, I suppose. But as a general car to drive, it's really nice. You know, it feels comfortable, it's nice, it's not noisy, the ride's good, the steering's nicely weighted. So yeah, it's just a good place to be. So yeah, that's my sort of driving opinion, I suppose, of the car itself. If you've enjoyed the video, then obviously please give it a like. If you've got any questions on the Skoda Scala, please leave them in the comments below. I always answer the questions when people you know, send them to me in the video links. So yeah, don't be shy, send me a question. If you've enjoyed the video, consider subscribing to the channel. There's going to be plenty more videos coming throughout the year. Hopefully if we don't go back into lockdown with this whole coronavirus thing. And yeah, look out for future videos coming, hit the notification bell, so you'll get a notification every time I upload a new video. So thanks for joining me today. I hope to see you in the next one.